Thank you for joining us this afternoon. The first item on the work session is the general budget and status update. Michelle?
Good afternoon. It is the middle of September, and I think we said back in April, we started saying maybe by October we would have, new information. And I guess the thing is, we're pretty much right on track. It's the middle of September, and I still really have no new information to relay. Other than we're hopeful to finally get a response from the state of Maryland on what our final fiscal year 20 highway user revenue is supposed to be. We heard informally, I just sent that email yesterday at the very end of the day. It's looking like we are going to get more than what they thought or what they projected and told us at the end of May, but still less than what we had in our initial budget. So we still need some of our general fund dollars to subsidize and cover some of the spends that we did on those types, the highway user revenue eligible projects that we had already spent on. But the good news is we wouldn't need as much as we originally anticipated. But again, waiting to get a formal letter with total dollars, because sometimes just an informal doesn't always work. But other than that, for the most part, everything else is on track or on trend for initial projections. And again, just as a reminder, the initial projections, we approved the budget in the end of May, and we approved the fiscal year 21 budget as it was prepared and balanced by the end of February. So that was pre-COVID. And we said we would continue as staff to come back and work with administration as we received new numbers to adjust that budget. And we've held the line. Scott is the city administrator, as well as many and all of our leaders across our departments have taken that very seriously and have kept purchases to a minimum unless it was something that was necessary, required, something, of course, that would jeopardize any type of safety. All of those things have continued to happen. We have not stopped that. But we have just kind of taken a step back and said, let's pause this first quarter to really get some information and figure out what the year is going to look like. So everybody has done that. So the good news is, there's some savings in all the departments, which we would expect to see. However, those savings are nowhere near and we'll flip it to the back of my memo, the $1.6 million that we're projected right now is a deficit for the general fund and then each of the other funds. I have not updated that spreadsheet that we have reviewed, and I think I brought for the first time in June, and then we brought it back in July. Had the same memo and the same chart in July 21st. It's the same chart that we're looking at on the memo here, and as well as on August the 18th. Really and truly, the only thing that we know any differently is that there's probably going to be some additional adjustment and a revenue reduction in the general fund related to school resource officers, our reimbursement dollars that we get for that. In the fiscal year 21 budget as approved, we had included $338,000. Again, that's to cover reimbursement for school resource officers. It does not cover 100% of their cost, but it did cover their base salary. Again, we don't know what that number may or may not look like. So there's going to be some additional reduction for that. Then the other thing really trend-wise is real estate taxes. We did get our supplemental bill file in August. I got to stop to think which month we're in. Unfortunately, so the supplemental bill, typically what happens with the supplemental billing is that anything that occurred and happened renovation or upgrade wise May through June 30 that didn't have time to be processed and hit the July 1 bill from the file that the state assessor's office provides to us happens in August. So we had probably 2 parcels that had major renovations that did not hit the July 1 budget. So that's the good news. The offset to that is both of those parcels have a enterprise zone tax credit. So the amount of revenue that we're going to get from that is greatly reduced. In addition, we had some huge adjustments, at least one appeal, and we've mentioned that appeal earlier. And I think what's going to happen is that the August supplemental bills were, no additional increase in revenue and maybe even a little bit less. So our initial billing plus a little bit of a decrease. We still do not know trends for appeals or have received any additional information from the State Department of Assessment and Taxation. As we get that information, I will share it and we'll bring it back. All of that said, one of the things I do just want to put out as a reminder is that quite often I'm hearing from a lot of employees that isn't it unfortunate the city of Hagerstown is going to have all this money in fiscal year 20 as a surplus, but yet we're not given raises in fiscal year 21. And first, I just want to take a step back and remind everybody, we've talked about the timing of when COVID and the pandemic struck, and that the likelihood for fiscal year 20 is that the general fund will have a surplus. I'm still anticipating that. We're still waiting on some final numbers, but I'm not expecting huge dollars like we did in fiscal year 19. That's part one. The other part of that I would just like to say, and I have been reminding people who have actually said that to me, is this. At the city of Hagerstown, since the middle of March, we have not done layoffs, we have not done furloughs, we have not changed or reduced anybody's benefits, not one single benefit. In addition, not only have we not changed any benefit, we have not charged any employee an additional premium to continue to receive those benefits. Then we get to July 1, and it's a new fiscal year. So again, we're fully staffed, haven't impacted our staffing at this point. And July 1, we have 4 collective bargaining agreements in place. And they are in place for fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22. And according to those agreements, all full-time employees on their anniversary date will receive a step, meaning a step is equivalent to years of service based on your hire date. So if you, depending on what union or collective bargaining union you're in and how many years you're here, if you have been here 7 years and you're getting ready to start your 8th, we would move you a step. And in several of the contracts, that would equate to a pay increase. So not only have we not impacted staff, we are still providing salary enhancements and raises in fiscal year 21 and have been for all the employees on their anniversary dates per the contract and their salary tables. On average across the entire city, this is about 3%. And I say on average, that is simply because in some contracts, some steps are more than 3%, some are less. Some people may have been here, 20 years, and they're at their maximum, and they've been at their maximum, and they're not getting a raise. The thing to remember is they wouldn't be getting a raise without COVID either. If they're already at the maximum step, they would not be getting any additional amounts unless we implemented a COLA, which we have not done. I think the next part of my update that I want to cover, there's been some confusion, I believe, that has been created and generated. So September the 1st, the governor's state moratorium on utility cutoffs and late fees and also evictions expired. Again, effective September the 1st. In the meantime, the day before, on August 31, the Maryland Public Services Commission, the PSC, implemented a moratorium. And their moratorium impacts everywhere they have jurisdiction across the state, which includes here at the city of Hagerstown, our residential electric customers. I'm sorry, but I need a drink. I believe that when the initial press release went out, as well as in several news articles that have transpired since then. A lot of the headlines read, no utility cutoffs or late fees or changes can occur until November 15th. And again, it's not that that entire statement is inaccurate, it's that a portion of it is accurate for the city of Hagerstown. That statement is accurate as it pertains to our residential electric customers. So the PSC brought forth the goal and the hope is that instead of the moratorium expiring and us starting September 1 with service terminations, that we would delay that. So we wait another month. So now it's October 1. Then one of the other steps is in place is that effective immediately, moving forwards into the future, that no disruption of service can be done without 45-day notice. So we have to do a 45-day advance notification. Sorry. So a 45-day notification, in the past it was 2 weeks. So that's a big change. Of course, from November 1st through April 1st or March 31, there's an affidavit period on the electric side for customers and a whole lot of other regulations. So you can't do service terminations if, you know, there's a whole string. If there's a child under 5, if there's certain age requirements, medical conditions are in place, weather, temperature conditions. So extra steps, extra written documentation that has to occur, contact to the customers at least 2 times. One we do in the way of paper door hangers and notifications. But again, the new moratorium and the difference is that this would start October 1, so beginning October 1, termination notifications could be sent 45 days in advance so that disruption of service would occur 45 days later or November 15th for all those accounts that were in arrearage or past due. One of the other criteria that they have put in place is that any residential electric customer that has a past due balance in that 45 days has time to reach out and make arrangements for either a payment plan with the city of Hagerstown or whomever your provider is, or to also apply for energy assistance programs that are now available. It included language for all these customers to be offered a minimum payment plan to pay off past due balances of 12 months if you are not already receiving energy assistance or some other state program assistance. If you are already receiving assistance of that nature, your payment plan at minimum would be 24 months. And last but not least, these customers are not to be required and will not have to provide a down payment or a deposit as a condition to provide a payment plan. And that includes any new or former customers. At any point that default occurs on any payment plan, another 18-month period of negotiations will occur. So again, I'm saying all of this. This is the criteria outlined by the PSC. And according to the PSC's jurisdiction that governs here at the city of Hagerstown, our electric customers, it does not govern the city of Hagerstown's utility water and wastewater customers. Important to note and important to differentiate. There are a few municipalities whose water and wastewater customers do fall under that jurisdiction as well. So one of the things that we have decided to do is that for our water and wastewater customers, we have been reaching out, and we have been since March, sending reminders, letting everybody know past due balances, how much they are, we're open for business. But we've kind of taken a step further to make sure we're renewing our efforts to reach all those, especially anybody who had a past due arrearage. Then starting next week, the week of September the 14th, we will be sending out a minimum number, concentrating first and foremost on those with the highest past due balances.
21st.
21st, sorry. Next week, the 21st, not yesterday. In an effort to begin the process to hopefully get some payment on our substantially growing arrearages and past due balances. And again, that's on for the water and wastewater customers. We are making every effort to communicate. We have been trying to communicate, and we're being proactive. There are some areas that, don't necessarily do that and automatically place liens on a tax bill for that. And again, not that that could not occur and not that the city wouldn't implement that measure, but we're trying to communicate and be proactive before that were to occur. And again, difference between what people are reading in the headlines and utilities mean specifically here for the city of Hagerstown. Scott, anything to add?
Not really. Again, I think we have gone much further on the notification process than any other municipality I know of when it comes to both water and electric. I think electric, we testified in front of the PSC, and 2 weeks ago, along with BG&E and SMECO and some co-ops. It definitely is starting to hurt the electric utility, especially when we have to pay Allegheny Energy 100% of our purchase power, and we're only getting in about 65% of what of that 100%. It's been like that for going on 9 months now. So we're going to, we don't have a choice but to follow those guidelines, and we'll do it. But we'll make sure that when November 15th comes, the affidavit process is followed. We have not tended to cut in the wintertime because there are so many restrictions. 32 degree has to be can't be under 32 degrees over a 72-hour period of the forecast. You can't be on energy assistance. You can't have children under 5. You can't have a life seal, which means you have an existing condition that requires electricity or a ton of stuff. But we're going to have to this time, just simply because the utility is going to require that cash flow. On the water side, we've gone, again, over and above notifying people of the arrearages. We have accounts that are in arrearages for almost 2 years now, simply because of the process to go through as far as payment arrangements and that kind of thing. We'll have electric customers of which there will be arrearages over a year because of the affidavit process and the pandemic. So you can't expect to do business and be able to provide a service when this escalating arrearage occurs. We've had some people take advantage of the payment arrangements, calling in. Many have continued to pay, but I think as Councilman Alshire said many times, at least when I was in the job downstairs, we're providing an interest-free loan for those that aren't paying on the backs of those that are paying. And it's just not fair, and it's not healthy to the utility to be able to provide the service. So we will start taking action. I appreciate the article in the paper today, extremely accurate, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate Alexis reaching out to Beth on that again, on top of the PSAs that we've done, on top of the other articles and the brochures and the door hangers and all kinds of stuff. So. Again, we're begging people, if you have an arrearage you have not contacted, contact customer service, work something out. Payment arrangements are extremely liberal because they have to be. But if you don't reach out, if you just think I don't have to make any payments, on water at least, we're going to start taking action next week. On the other things, we monitor daily where we're at on tax receipts. We're thankful it's not been worse. I mean, there was a time we were looking at $2.5 million, and I think we communicated that to you all. It could go as high as $2.5 million. I don't think we're gonna get to that point, but it's still gonna be significant. We had another meeting today on where we could look, other things we might be able to do, again, trying to think out of the box on budget. Budget changes we can make not only this fiscal year, but for '22. And I think we have some ideas moving forward, how that's gonna affect, the bottom line, we just don't know yet. So, I appreciate the work Michelle's done, I appreciate the work Dawn has done, all the departments have done in getting us to the point now where, it hurts, but we're working through it, so.
And I appreciate everybody's patience, because it is really hard, and it's extremely hard for me to continue to provide these updates. I do them here, I provide email updates. We sit weekly and have directors meetings. We were having daily status directors meetings. The directors are fairly tired of hearing me say the same thing. But as soon as more information is available, we will definitely share it. And again, you know, in the first 2.5 months, the trends are exactly on where we thought they would be. The biggest unknown is going to be the appeals. If we get large dollars of appeals, we could still have a really big deficit. Even with the electric customers and the things that are in place, we are still making every effort. So our staff has been so willing, and they are very creative. We have very good operational manager, both in the electric department as well as downstairs in support services. They've worked together and they've created a door hanger. So if you're an electric customer and you're 60 days past due, they've created a door hanger that's colored so that it catches your attention. That just as a past due reminder notification. That's simply what it is, a past due reminder notification. But it has a lot of information, ways for you to reach out and contact the City of Hagerstown on things that we can do, as well as they worked with the CAC and have got some additional information and have attached to every single one of these packets, they attach information for different places to reach out for additional assistance. And staff is, every single day, they are out delivering door hangers. And again, it's an effort to continue communication with our customer base so that they don't forget about us and don't forget that we are actually here and open, because some areas and some municipalities are not open to the public yet, and we are. And we just want to continue those efforts, because it will be extremely hard for somebody come November 15th to try to make up for a year's worth of overdue bills, pay the same current bill, and then head into the holiday season. So again, we're just making every effort that we possibly can.
And the building now is open 5 days a week. We had gone down to 3 during the period when there really wasn't any activity downstairs, but we are open 5 days a week. The lobby's open 8 to 4. Phone, online payments, there's email, customer service at hagerstownmd.org. Plenty of ways to get in touch with us. And we just can't, we can't ask enough. Please contact us, get a payment arrangement done, or let us get you information on where you can get some assistance. If you haven't done it by now, you know, over the last 7-8 months, please do it now.
Any questions from the council for Michelle, Scott?
Yeah. Okay, so we're on track right now with all the funds, with general fund, parking fund, electric, wastewater, water funds. We're looking at 1.8 million deficit. And that could go higher, is what you were saying.
It's not going to go lower.
It's not
That's
gonna go
unfortunate.
lower, yeah. Okay. At what point do we need to start looking at freezing salaries so that we don't have to resort to layoffs?
So what has been in place, the only thing that has been in place since July 1 was we implemented a hiring freeze. The actual salaries themselves are included within agreements that we have in place across our 4 collective bargaining unions. So without reopening contracts, and that was something that we had reached out and asked if there was any interest in, we had received word back from the union groups that no, that they weren't willing to forego the step increases or the raises in lieu of any other additional action that may occur, such as a layoff or a furlough.
So they would prefer a layoff or a furlough to a salary cut or a salary freeze?
I think maybe they were hoping that by October, things would be different. I don't know. I don't want to make that assumption. I just know that in June, we met with all the groups. That was asked for each of the groups to take the information back to their membership, and we received word back that union membership was not in favor of that.
So when we hit, and the other thing is, were you saying, Scott, that, okay, we're looking at November 15th is the first time we can actually cut off electric for non-payment, but then how far beyond November 15th do we hit a 32-degree temperature that we can't do it again? Or are you saying
Until April 1st.
April 1st?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking at maybe, this whole electric payment thing for a long time.
We've had years where we have, obviously in the colder, snowier times, when we have not cut the whole year. We had times, I think the last 2 years, when we have cut through the winter because it's been milder. So it's an affidavit process. It takes 5 business days usually through the PSC to do everything you have to do. Personal contact, then you have to hang a door hanger, and then you have to wait. Two rounds of contact. Then you have to wait 3 days, and then you can cut. And that's that small group, as it turns out, it's a small group that ends up being eligible to be cut that doesn't fall within all of the, you can't, if they're on MEP or some sort of OHEP assistance, they can't be cut through the wintertime. Children, elderly, life-threatening conditions. There's been talk about if you have children in the house that are going through virtual learning.
Or anyone in the house that's doing online.
Going through virtual learning, you can't cut. That's not been a mandate, but it's still perking out there in PSC world. So it's a difficult process.
So let's say we get to the end of this and whatever the end looks like, and we're $2 million in the hole. What options do we have? Or is it floating bonds, borrowing money to?
No, I mean, to float a bond won't necessarily erase a deficit. I think realistically, one of the things that I've said to Scott, one of the things that I've said to others, is realistically, I do not hold out hope that there is any way that when I sit here next year and say fiscal year 21 for the general fund, I feel like we're going to be in a deficit. And, that's okay. We have built up fund balance to offset that. Now, we can't be $1.6 million in deficit. We do have to be proactive and put things in place. But I think what we need to concentrate on is doing that October, November, December, so that we have something in place for fiscal year 22. Our tax base, our assessable base, those lag in this entire process. And unlike what happened years ago, at the city, the general fund and the tax base, and that is where the hardest hit was felt, and it was felt immediately. In the utility groups, electric, water, wastewater, parking, there wasn't as much of a blip. There wasn't hardly impact in their operations. That is not the case, and we've been having those conversations. Our electric department, we are literally watching their cash on a daily basis. But the impact is felt, and it is immediate, and it is in all of the utility groups. And again, it is being felt within the general fund and our tax base, just timing-wise of when the assessments were done to when we'll see more of an impact dollar-wise. I think the goal will be minimize as much as possible whatever the deficit's going to occur for 21 and have a good plan forward for fiscal year 22 and 23. And that's honestly, at this point, that's the best we can hope for.
But-
And most all other municipalities and towns are saying the same thing. Maryland GFOA. We can't just go out and get a bond to cover normal operating expenses. One of the very first requirements of having any bond is that it's an actual capital item that is eligible for depreciation.
The good news piece of it, though, is that as far as economic development goes, their phones are ringing off the hook. The interest in Hagerstown, Washington County, is very strong. North Point's an obvious example. Some other contacts they've had gives us, a good indication of where we may be a couple years on the tax base. Annexation, you all have been very progressive with annexation, which is also the way, really the main way to grow the tax base, to increase our boundaries. We need to continue that. Also, the housing market is still strong here. I think as of last week, there were less than 200 properties on the market. People are staying, but people are also are looking to Hagerstown to get away from the big city and to expand here. So those are all good things to look at in the future. We've got a tough 12 months to 18 months to get through, and it's going to be it's going to be bumpy, but we'll get there. We'll get through it.
Anybody else? Thank you, Michelle. Self-contained breathing apparatus award. Congratulations, Chief.
That was a good note. Afternoon, Mayor and Council. I have what I believe is some good news for you this afternoon, and I have at my side Captain Trevor Stoops, Captain Brian Henry, both of which have led and done the lion's share of the work with the committees necessary to get us to this point. I think if you've had the opportunity to review the cover memo, we're asking you to award a bid for the federally grant-funded self-contained breathing apparatus and accessories to Municipal Emergency Services of Rockville, Maryland, in the amount of $672,765.04, of which the city's portion of that will be $61,250. I believe Finance has a combination of CIP and general funds to fund that amount. This negates a planned CIP project in FY23 for $800,000 and replaces all of our SCBA inventory. You may remember I was in front of you a little over 2 years ago accepting a donation of used breathing apparatus from Montgomery County, Maryland, the Urban Area Security Initiative stuff that got us to this point until we could apply for and happily be awarded a grant. So one other thing of note, we have rapid intervention team bags on all 3 of our ladder trucks. They fell outside of the scope of the grant, and the 2 volunteer companies that house the ladder trucks, Pioneer Hook and Ladder Company, Western Enterprise volunteers, stepped up and offered 50% shares to replace all 3 of those RIT bags with breathing apparatus, fittings, and accessories so that we can operate regionally when we leave the city. So I'm very pleased to bring this in front of you, and I have staff here to answer any technical questions you may have about process, the bid awards, et cetera. And then finally, I would be remiss, in addition to the committee that the captains led, to not acknowledge Tyler French in Finance, who has helped us with many RFPs, but any of them that involve the Assistance to Firefighters Grant, pretty complex process, and that went seamlessly among 3 bidders. And finally, Mrs. Julie Stotler in our own office, who manages all of our grant applications, and follow up for the grants. So be happy to entertain any questions. We ask that you approve this at your regular meeting this month. If you approve it, we would anticipate receiving the new equipment probably near the end of December.
You all good with this?
Yeah, I'm good with it. This is the kind of thing that, kind of expenditures I like to approve. You know, I hope we have funding to continue to do this for emergency responders and.
We're out looking every year, council member, and one of the things that's hard to do is get funding a second time for the same thing. The intent of that program is that.
Yeah, don't turn it down the first time.
They seed it and then you maintain it. So this actually elevates us 3 NFPA cycles, I believe, in the standard for breathing apparatus. So it's a little bit past due, to be honest with you. But thank you for your support.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate the hard work. All right, Doug, you're up for the review of the financial incentive agreement, Hagerstown Commerce Center, Inc.
Good afternoon. Here to discuss a financial incentive agreement with Hagerstown Commerce Center for development for parcels along Dual Highway and All-Star Court. The developer plans to construct a Fairfield Marriott by June 30th of 2022. They also plan to construct a second hotel, restaurant, and office by June 30th of 2023. The agreement recognizes that the developer has made investments to the roadway, water, and wastewater infrastructure dating back to 2004 in the amount of $1.2 million. And also recognizes that the developer had site plan approvals for the projects prior to COVID-19 and the economic impacts to the industries that he's building. A summary of the financial incentive agreement include building permit fees not to exceed $30,000 in waiver, an annual grant back to 40% in the change in assessed value for the amount of paid real estate property taxes for a period of 5 years. This is equivalent to the enterprise zone tax basis. Even though the site's not located in a tax basis, the 40% is equal to the city as a contribution if it were located in that zone. The first tax year would be the certificate of occupancy that the Fairfield Marriott completes, and it must be obtained by June 30th of 2022, meaning that the next tax year would be 2023 that it impacts. The agreement also provides if the a certificate of occupancy is obtained for the second hotel, the office building, and the restaurant, any remaining years of the tax balance would be a tax credit for those developments as well. Staff have worked with the city attorney and other for the remainder of the agreement. So any questions regarding the financial incentive agreement for Hagerstown Commerce Center, I'd be open to hear.
Anybody have anything?
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Fuel sales to Community Rescue Service.
Good afternoon. Now, this is to continue selling diesel fuel and gasoline to Community Rescue Service, which the city's been doing for many years. We entered into a formal agreement in 2010 with a 5-year agreement that in 2015, another 5-year agreement, which will end here in October of 2020. So this is to continue on providing fuel and diesel fuel and gasoline to CRS at a cost plus payment. Whatever we buy the fuel for, we sell it to them plus an administrative fee of 9.5%. That's pretty much the gist of the memo. It's just continue on what we've been doing, and we want to enter into another 5-year agreement.
Sounds good.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Have we ever looked at some of the commercial fueling network agreements as opposed to running our own fuel service center for fleets, where the fleet members get a card, they can go to a Sheetz, they can go to a Chevron, they go wherever for their diesel.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what the cost benefit is between running our own facility and using a network like that.
Sure. Not necessarily, we haven't. We renovated our facility in 2007 at a cost, I don't know, I think it was about $200,000, new tanks and that sort of thing. So we've invested kind of heavily into our system. And before, Sheetz and AT&T and other places were open 24/7, we were the only game in town for the most part for 24/7. So that's why we even have the operation. We also, by buying it directly, Washington County bids this out, our diesel fuel. So we go in, Washington County bids it out for us, for themselves and for us. And we don't pay the federal excise tax. So we do catch a pretty good break on the fuel. There might be advantages to doing that, but right now it seems to work pretty well with what we're doing. We only have one facility, so there's not a huge expense in running that one facility. And we can, but we can look into that. I'm not sure what the advantage or cost effectiveness would be, but we can take a look at that.
It might be something down the road looking at
Yeah.
before we have to do any major renovations. to the
Absolutely.
fuel
When
source.
we renovated in 2007, we actually had to use, used AT&T as our fueling source, and we had to track costs and all that sort of thing. But, so we have used outside sources when we've had to. But we sort of took a look at that.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks.
Anything else? Thank you.
Okay.
Holiday parking. Yeah.
This is just a continuation of a program we've done the last number of years. We provide free parking in the parking decks on a Friday night through the weekends, and this is basically through the month of December. It really starts around Thanksgiving, Black Friday, the holiday. It's all free parking during that weekend anyway, and then the following Friday, December 4th, is when we would start it. So it'd be free parking Friday night through Saturday and Sunday through pretty much the new year. And then right after the new year, we'd start back up with parking in the decks, paid parking on the weekends. Same program we've done for the last number of years, so.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep, all right.
Megan, you're up. Landmark overlay at Sail House.
Are we doing Landmark first, or is it Cole Road? Does it
And,
matter?
well, no, we should be doing the annexation of Cold
Okay.
properties first. Again,
So we're reviewing the
I don't know why you're
public.
trying to rush ahead.
Yeah, no problem. This is public input for annexation case A 2020-03. These properties, again, were the Kohl's, Bob's Discount Furniture, Christmas Tree Shop, DSW, Ross, the old US Cellular, and then the remaining vacant storefronts in that strip. It's a total of 34.31 acres. The only public input we received is the standard feedback from the Maryland Department of Planning, including the consensus that the proposed city zoning is consistent with the county zoning. Again, that's all the public input we have for this one, and then the next step would be to pass or reject the annexation resolution, and if approved, it would become effective in 45 days.
Any questions for Megan? So I see where the county didn't want to give us express approval on the annexation of Valley Mall.
They did have it on their agenda, and I believe they tabled both Cole Road and Valley Mall Road, but they did give express approval for Thomas Bennett Hunter, which was already approved last month. As was the Valley Mall Road one as well. I think it's supposed to be on their agenda next week, the remaining two.
But we don't need their approval, right?
No,
No,
the
it
express
still
approval,
happens.
Express.
right, exactly, and especially since the two were already approved and they're already developed, so it shouldn't have an impact. The Thomas Bennett Hunter was the one that we needed the express approval for, and we did get that one.
Okay. All right, public input, landmark overlay at the Sail House.
So the public input for the Sailor House, we heard from Ann Aldrich at the public hearing for Mayor and Council. We also heard from Martin Brubaker, both of whom represented the Washington County Historical Trust. And the letter that they read is attached here, but essentially just states that approval of the landmark overlay district is critical to their ongoing efforts to preserve the property and also to chase after particular grants. And we did not receive any additional public input after that input at the hearing. We also have a couple emails from the public from the Planning Commission public hearing as well. So yeah, mostly just support from the Washington County Historical Trust to approve the zoning overlay for the landmark.
Questions from council on the Sailor House?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
2020 trick or treat.
Over the last year and a half, had to deal with a lot of things, none of which have been as controversial as trick or treat. So I hope my grandkids are in front of the TV right now because they ask every day, Pops, are we gonna have trick or treat? So earlier in the spring, staff came to mayor and council and provided an update that Friday, October 30th would be the date for trick or treat in city neighborhoods. That date was chosen because the Mummers Parade would be on Saturday, October 31st. You don't want to conflict with that. Since that time, due to the pandemic, the Alsatian Club canceled the Mummers Parade on October 31st. This cancellation, as well as the fact that last year there was a ton of confusion created because, and I can't believe I don't remember what it was due to bad storms, or I think a hurricane was, yeah, heavy rain and high winds.
That never materialized.
Right, that the city canceled trick or treat and had it rescheduled. Through a lot of discussion and some borrowing of information from from the borough of Chambersburg, we decided to offer up a change as to how the city would be promoting trick or treat this year. And I'll read it, it's part of the packet. It is suggested that families trick or treat each year on October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. in order to give your friends, motorists, and police an idea when to expect pedestrians and visitors at their door. Participation and scheduling is entirely up to each family. Since trick or treat will not be scheduled by the city would not reschedule or suggest a rain date in the event of inclement weather or because of this year's crisis. Moreover, it's perfectly acceptable for folks to opt out and not participate. We simply ask each family to do what they feel is best for them. So if you want to participate in trick or treat in the city of Hagerstown, October 31st from 6 to 8 would be the time to do it. The police will be aware that's happening. Motorists will have it publicized and make sure motorists keep an eye out for kids in the street. If you're concerned about the pandemic and putting your kids out there, don't put them out there. Wear a mask. Obviously, kids will probably have masks on. But if you're a parent, wear a mask. Social distance walking to the door. If you're giving out candy, wear a mask. But if it's raining, rain, snow, sleet, or hail, if it doesn't happen on October 31st from 6 to 8, don't look for the city to reschedule it. If your individual neighborhood wants to do something different, entirely up to that neighborhood to do it. And that is what we would look to put forth from this point forward. Every year bring to you this exact same thing. In another, 6 years, when it does conflict with the Mummers Parade, we would move it to either October 30th or November 1st and just make that the recommended date. So trick or treat, as far as we are concerned, is on. It's up to the neighborhoods, the families, to do what they feel is best for them.
I'm okay with that. I do want to make mention that in speaking with the Youth Advisory Council yesterday during their meeting, that if you are looking to get this out publicly, if you're trying to send a message to the community, that they'd be willing to help with the message in getting it out there in video or all of the social media platforms. So if they're interested.
Absolutely.
Because they're kids.
Yep.
Anybody else have anything on this?
No, I think this is the best solution. Let families decide what they want to do, because either way you try to legislate something, you're going to be wrong. And So this is the best way to go.
Yeah, I'm fine with the 31st being the trick or treat, you know, from here until eternity, except for one number of parade years where it falls on Monmouth State Parade. That was gonna be my only question, which you answered before I had the chance to ask it, so that's great. And, you know, I can remember trick or treating as a kid and, you know, freezing my butt off because it was so cold, you know, or it rained or whatever. We didn't stop trick or treat because
Or
of it.
6 inches of snow, or.
We just went
yeah.
and got candy.
Yeah.
So, all right. Enough said on that. City administrators' comments?
All right, couple of things. I want to first, we had a, it was certainly not a situation, but we had a development late on Friday regarding Vaso Boulevard. Rodney, would you come up? This is in regard to the reconstruction of Vaso Boulevard and some feedback that Rodney had received related to that. As we all know, North Point is moving at light speed. If you've driven out there lately, you can see that it changes daily, what they're doing out there, and it's accelerated the need to get the road up to par. So Rodney is here. I'd like for him to talk through the process he's done in dealing with the contractor and dealing with North Point on what we're going to, on the suggestion for that road, and then get your feedback from that.
Good afternoon. We awarded that a couple weeks ago. C. William Hetzer, Hagerstown, received the contract. They've already started mobilizing their equipment, doing some of the initial sediment control measures and things like that. We had the pre-construction meeting last week, and they requested that we would consider allowing them to close Vaso Boulevard for reconstruction, the portion that goes from basically Burhans Boulevard to approximately Nolan Company. If they were allowed to close that road, they would still have to get the 200 trucks a day into the Lowe's distribution center, and they have a plan for that. But they offered that could save maybe 20 to 25 working days, which is roughly about a month of time to rebuild that section. They also said there could be significant financial savings to the project. So what we would do is things like the concrete jersey barrier that would have ran the whole length of the project while we tried to do it a half at a time is all eliminated. So there's significant savings there, 6-figure savings in different things like that. We've checked with the fire department, we checked with the police department. They can work with us for a couple months if it moves forward. We've tried our best to contact all the businesses out there, and we got feedback from about 7 or 8. Mostly the answer was, we don't like it, but get it done as fast as you can. I guess we're at a point where they've come to us with that request. Staff feels like it's a legitimate request and that in 2 months we can expedite the project. It's a good thing. But Scott and I both felt like we wanted your concurrence on that as well. So do you have any questions on any of that?
I'm good.
I'm good with it.
We need that money.
I don't have a question, but you know, hindsight, obviously 2020. You know, we had 5, I think it was, bids on the project.
Right.
To me, I think this is a significant difference. You know what I mean, between what was put out there to be bid on and what action is going to be taken now. I would assume, as you have noted, a good part of that savings is maintenance traffic. Mm-hmm. And so that would be relevant to each of those bids,
It would be.
you know, concurrently.
Right.
But I just would have I would have preferred, you know what I mean, if everybody would have been bidding on the scenario of closure
Mm-hmm.
versus now doing closure as, you know, as an option.
I can't disagree with you on that. I do think, though, that what we're doing is subtracting scope out of their contract.
Right.
So that would have been true for any of the bidders.
Yeah.
So Hetzer still would have been the low bid, but I don't disagree with what you're saying.
But I'm good with it other than that.
Well, I'm just gonna hate life for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I travel that
Affects you
road 3
more than
times a
anybody.
day, so,
I'm putting so many cool signs in my yard for you. You'll go by my house like twice a day.
well, I'll be taking 81. But yeah, I mean, anything that can, shave basically a month of construction time on that road, and then, like you said, well over 6 figures. I mean, how do you not do that, even though it affects the citizens and benefits the citizens all at the same time, so.
You cross the line of Pennsylvania, Route 11's closed right now, Route 16's closed. I mean, these things do happen. If we can
Sure,
expedite it, I
understand,
think
yeah.
it's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to
We just did it right down there.
take a couple trial drives and figure out which way's the fastest.
Okay.
All righty, anything else, Scott?
Yeah, just a couple things.
Thank you,
Street
Rodney.
closure, thank you, Rodney. Street closure continues this weekend. We're switching to Sundays for the next 2 weeks. So they'll be dining in the street Sunday, 11:30 a.m. to 3 o'clock. Came down last Saturday night, and great crowd downtown. There was some music going on at the gastropub. New restaurant is opened and in the old Ava's space behind 28 South. That had a nice crowd and is going to be a nice addition to downtown.
Prohibition Pub, right?
Yeah, Prohibition Hub.
Pub.
So it was great to see a little bit of normalcy downtown, but I appreciate everybody still doing the responsible thing with masks and social distancing. So we moved to Sunday afternoons. We hope we'll do this for as long as the weather stays good through October. And then movie in the park. I know one of the mayor's favorite movies is going to be shown Saturday night at 6, Goonies. So show up down there. Again, we've had a good response, good safe
Love
response
it.
for that. And
Okay.
hopefully we'll have good weather for that. That's it for me.
Reminds me of the council.
Chris,
You're up.
I don't have anything to see.
All right, Austin.
Nothing this evening.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who helped make the Washington Goes Purple Recovery Walk on Saturday a success. University Plaza was a great location. Everyone wore masks, went over very well. We hosted Brandon Novak, who's a former star of Jackass, the MTV series, and he was a professional skateboarder, toured with Tony Hawk, toured all over the world. He parked his car down in Central Lot and walked around downtown before he met me. And he's traveled all over the world. He's from Baltimore, but he had never been to Hagerstown. And he was very impressed, was raving about our downtown. And then he actually walked with us from University Plaza onto the Cultural Trail, down to the mural and everything. And he thought the Cultural Trail was one of the coolest things he's ever seen. And I thought that was pretty cool coming from someone who's traveled the world. So hats off to you, Rodney. And that's all.
Lou?
Nothing, thank you, Mayor.
nope, good, thank you.
I just have one thing. I realize that it's difficult sometimes to be here on time, but at 4 o'clock is what time we're starting our work sessions, and at 7 o'clock is what time we're starting our general session. So but let's be here at least at 4 so we can kick it off, so we can get the work session out of the way. Appreciate it. That's it. See you next week.